that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I did a poll in my stories and people were really interested in what this means. Are you over accommodating? What does that look like? Can you give us an example? So what over accommodating looks like, I was talking about this on a client call with one of my adult clients who's recently started working with me, working on himself and kind of reparenting himself, which is a really interesting and different perspective versus working with the parent who's trying to avoid having a child that when they grow up, they are having these food issues. So, and he was telling me some examples of how his mother over accommodated when he was a child, and that looked like never wanting him to be upset. So if he was not enjoying the meal that was being made or that was presented at the table, the parent would make him something else. And he said, this is his perspective as an adult, that he was able to coerce his caregiver, his parent, to give him what he wanted. And he has gotten to that point with himself that he coerces himself. And there's a lot of guilt and shame around whether or not he wants to eat something, to the point where we've now started working together to really take back for him to take back some of his power over his own life. So if I can talk to you and reach you as the parent before you get to this point, or even if you are a parent who is over accommodating, it is not too late to make positive changes, because your child, what they need to see from you is that you are the confident leader. So that's one example of over accommodating, that your child says they don't like something and you just say, oh, okay, I'll make you something else. That is absolutely over accommodating. If you have a child that is asking you for things and they say like, mommy, I want chicken nuggets for dinner, and you had planned on making a stir fry, you are over accommodating by abandoning your plan of what you were going to make and making something else. That is another example of over accommodating. The person next door, I don't know if you can hear, they're like gardening. I'm just going to close my window. That's kind of helpful. Okay, so those are examples of over accommodating. So give me a show of like double taps. How many of you fall into that category of over accommodating? Because almost all the parents that I work with fall into that category of over accommodating, and it's very easy to do that. And I was talking to I think it was a different client yesterday about that. No parent does that because they don't love their child. A parent who is willing to abandon the stir fry to make their child chicken nuggets so that their child will eat is doing it from a place of wanting to please their child and wanting their child to eat. It doesn't come from a bad place. It doesn't make you a bad parent. It makes you a parent that really cares about your child, and that's wonderful. The problem with that over accommodating is that it becomes a habit, and it can increase the picky eating because your child realizes that they are able to ask for what they want and that you will give it to them. It's not about winning and losing. It's not about struggling for power. It's simply that if your child knows that they can ask you for something and they will get the food that they want, the reliable, comfortable food, they're never going to stretch themselves and try something different. Now, once you realize you're over accommodating, great, because that's a big step. Some parents, it's hard to acknowledge or it's hard to acknowledge or take accountability and say, oh yeah, I really have been doing that. And so if you can acknowledge that from this live and realize, yeah, I am doing that, that's a really big first step, because now you can identify it and you can change it. If you can't identify that you're doing it and you don't know it's a problem, you can't be conscious of it and make a change. So once you have realized, oh yeah, I am over accommodating, it might not be all the time. It might be just sometimes. If you are over accommodating, the first thing to do is to be aware of it. The next thing is to stop doing it. So that's the hard part, right? So when I'm working with a client and they are, I had one client message me that their child had a major meltdown about not wanting dinner. He wanted to get something out of the fridge. Mum wrote that we troubleshooted this in our small coaching group call yesterday. She gave me some details in our group chat about what had happened. And she said, once he got out of the bath, he was still quite upset, and she gave him milk to calm him down. So what this actually did was spur a conversation between us as the parents in the group call about how do we manage the feelings of that meltdown, because that's actually what is triggering the parent to over accommodate. So in this example, the parent was over accommodating by giving milk, which essentially was an alternative to dinner. Even though it was after dinner, it might have been half an hour after dinner, but it was still over accommodating because the child initially didn't want to eat the food. They were having a meltdown. parent wanted to help them feel better and to stop the meltdown, so they gave milk. This is over accommodating. So how do we stop doing that? First of all, and this is what we talked about, and I go into a lot more detail about this, both in my courses, but obviously if we work together, because there's a lot of nuances to this, to situations with each child. Each child's needs are a little bit different. The way we communicate with each child is a little bit different. So with this parent, we were talking about what was triggering to the parent, how to manage those feelings during meltdowns. So my online course, Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, does have an entire section about meltdowns as it pertains to food. But as we were talking about this yesterday in our group coaching call, I told the parents, I said, okay, we're going to work through these, feelings of a meltdown as it pertains to food. However, once you have the basic structure of how do you handle the feelings of a meltdown, once you have that down pat, that's actually going to really help you in a lot of other aspects of parenting, because your child has meltdowns about lots of things. It's not just about food. And I will say this because, sometimes when you get on a live with somebody, they make it sound like their life is absolutely perfect. My children have meltdowns. I have normal children. They melt down sometimes about food. They melt down often about lots of other things, about what book they want to read, or not brushing their teeth, or not wanting to get dressed, or go to school, or get in the car, or get out of the car, or leave the park. Knowing how to manage a meltdown as it pertains to food, which is obviously the area that I work in, helps parents in a lot of other areas of their life as well. It's not uncommon for one of my clients to message me and say, like at the end of our work together, I am just so glad because my daughter was, wanting to have to watch TV, and I was afraid to tell her no because I didn't want to cause a meltdown because I just don't have the bandwidth to handle it. So a lot of what we work on together, either in the course or when we do the small coaching group, can be really, really helpful because you can apply that to other aspects of parenting. And over accommodating is something that parents are doing with food. And this is what I see with my clients. However, I also have like mom friends, and I know people just like you do who do over accommodate in other areas of life. And I'm going to give you a great example of this. All right. I want to see if you can relate to it. I was explaining this concept of over accommodating to a parent about a year ago in one of our coaching calls. And I said, let me give you an example. And I tried to give a really outlandish example. I said, imagine if you bought your children a $200 toy and they were fighting about who gets to use this toy. Would you go and buy them another $200 toy, exactly the same, or would you find a way to encourage them to work out their differences so they could take turns with the toy? And he turned to me and he said, I would buy them another toy. He laughed and he said, that's probably what I would do, is I would buy a second toy. And I said, that there is an example of over accommodating. And that's a perfect example. I tried to give a really outlandish example where to a lot of people, they would say, oh, that's not something I would do. But that was something that he would do. And again, that comes from a place of wanting to please your kids. And it's great. It's great that you want to please your kids. But the thing is, in life, your kids are not going to be pleased all the time, just like you as an adult are not pleased all the time. Things are hard, things are shitty, you have bad days, like things don't go to plan all the time. And we can help our children learn how to manage these things and become more resilient through the ways that we communicate with them, which is why a big part of what I do with parents is communication and setting up really firm communication, good conversation as it pertains to food to help with picky eating. But you will find that also helps in many other aspects of parenting. And that there concludes our section of talking about over accommodating. I'm going to spend a little bit more time live and answer some questions. I'm going to start on Instagram. I'm just scrolling back a little bit to have a look. I guess you have to sign up for the course to know the answers. Well, I did just talk about some of the answers. The online course is Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, and that is in the link in my bio. It's $149 US, which works out to be about $3 per lesson. They're all video modules, so you see my face, you can hear the way I'm talking just like you would now. And there's a lot of handouts, like fridge-friendly handouts, so that you can practice these phrases. It's a very comprehensive phrase guide to help you out, as well as mealtime guides of what to feed your children, and lots of other really great things. But one of the two biggest things that parents will say that they liked in the courses were how easy it is to apply what you learn in the modules. The modules are nice and short, so even if you only get to watch one and it's 6 minutes, you have something to implement at your very next meal. The fridge-friendly handouts that you can so that you can pop them on your fridge and start practicing the respectful ways of talking to kids. Thank you for the rose. So that you can start practicing those with your kids right away. And The other thing is the Ultimate Mini Meal Mindset Snack Guide, so that you can print that out, stick it on your fridge so that you have plenty of ideas of what to feed your children at snack time, so that you don't feel like you're giving them the same thing all the time. And the link to that course is in my bio. All right, I am going to pop over now to TikTok and answer some questions, as I saw there were quite a few that came in. 4 months old, as long as they can hold themselves upright in a high chair. I'm guessing this is a question about starting solids. The recommendation is 6 months. I know that in the US, they say between 4 and 6 months. Generally speaking, in most cases, children do not show all the signs of readiness until close to 6 months. And there is no need to rush starting solids, because your baby at 6 months old is simply exploring food. And if you start feeding solids as a way of trying to bulk them up, you're going to be very disappointed, and you're going to start off their journey with food as being stressful, because it's stressful for you. So I don't suggest you start feeding at 3 months old, 4 months old, or 5 months old. I recommend you start when your child is 6 months old and showing the signs of readiness. I do have an online course called Fuss-Free First Foods. I actually developed this after I started working with clients, because so many of my clients said, gee, I wish I had this knowledge when my baby was a baby. So I show you in that course, you will be able to set up responsive, successful mealtimes right from the beginning and avoid a lot of the issues that a lot of the parents that I work with have. I'm trying to put myself out of business. I would love for no one to have a 4-year-old or 5-year-old or 7-year-old that only eats 5 foods. This will help you set up responsive mealtimes that are not stressful. They are stress-free right from the start, because you know whose job is what at mealtimes. The Fuss-Free First Foods course also has guidance on how to introduce solids, whether you're doing baby-led weaning or purees or a mix of both, and how to make the decision that's right for you. There's no one way that is best for everyone. There is one way that is best for you, and that's it. All right, my 8-year-old only eats about 5 foods. Rachel, if you're still on this live, can you please send me a DM, because it seems like you and I would need to have a chat. You said that he might be on the spectrum. I'm working with a few children at the moment that are on the spectrum, and generally speaking, like depending on how severe the case is, I would want to work with you one-on-one. There's a chance that the small group might be a good fit for you, but I would rather talk to you on the phone and figure out exactly what your issues are, because if the small group is not going to be enough support for you to reach your goals and you need more support, I'm not going to recommend that you go and join the group. My 15-year-old has always been a picky eater and still is. So I want to let you know it's not too late. And the reason I'm going to tell you this is because if you were on the live at the very beginning, you'll remember I was telling you that I'm working with a client at the moment who's in his mid-20s, and he's working on himself. He does not have children. He is essentially reparenting himself around food, because he grew up in a household that there was a lot of guilt and shame, which is the traditional way of parenting children at mealtimes. You need to eat this. You can't leave the table until you try this. Why won't you eat this? It's basically the child grows up with shame. And now I have this client who's in his mid-20s that is trying to reparent himself so that he doesn't feel shame and guilt. He wants to improve his diet, but there's a lot of stuff that we're unpacking as we're going through this, with self-talk and other things, basically conversations that I encourage my regular clients to have with their children that he is now having with himself. So what I'm telling you is it's not too late to get started. It's also not too early to get started. I had a parent reach out to me recently. I've had a few saying like, oh, I didn't really want to send you a message because my baby's only, 1.5 years old. And I thought that was too early and I should wait a while. If you have a 1.5-year-old that's been picky for 6 months, that's a very large portion of their life that they've been eating, that they have been having picky eating issues. They started eating at 6 months old. They're now 18 months old. So they've been eating for the space of 12 months. If they've been picky for 6 months, that's half their eating life that they've been picky. That is a problem. That's a large portion of time. So think about how long has your child been picky? What is the percentage of their life that they've been picky? That's a problem if it's a big percentage. So it's never too early to get started either. How come my kids eat everything till they were 4 years old? Then the switch got flipped and now they're picky. It could have something to do with them going to school. because those of you who have school-age children will know that your children come home saying all sorts of interesting things that you don't say at home, but they hear from school. That could be part of it. There's usually picky eating coincides with when babies can start having autonomy and start saying no to things. So, for example, the typical age that I see kids starting to get picky is somewhere between 12 and 18 months, but it can be anywhere in the first in that 1 to 2 years old. Some kids it is older, some kids it's earlier. I've seen kids that have really strong preferences 9 months old. So that's quite early. 3-year-old is picky as help. Send me a DM. You can now DM me on Instagram as well, and you can DM me on TikTok. So you can DM me on TikTok. If you've got a child and you do feel like you need my support and you want my support, I've got an 8-week program. Currently, my last one for the year is about 3/4 of the way through. And all the parents that are in there, we just had a group call yesterday. And everybody at the moment, at the beginning of this 8-week program, it's very intensive. I'm assigning you homework assignments so that you can keep moving forward during the week. And then by the end of about the 4th or 5th week, the main components of the skills that you're going to learn, you already have them. And now we're honing the skills. Now we're practicing them together and troubleshooting things as they come up. So things are not going to be smooth sailing all the time. That's not the point. It's impossible. Anybody who has a child knows that even if you know how to handle a meltdown, your child is still going to have a meltdown. It's knowing that you're confident in how to handle it and knowing that you have a plan so that you can continue to know how to respond to it so that the things don't get worse, they will get better, and that you can respectfully work with your child as a team. So for the children that are only eating 3 foods, even if your child's on the spectrum, in case you weren't here 5 minutes ago, I've got a couple of children at the moment in my practice that do have that are on the spectrum. They do have autism. The ways that we work together, usually I recommend one-on-one, because each child in general is so different. The group is really great for general picky eating, but if you've got a special case with various compounding factors, like the way we communicate with your child is going to be a little bit different. It really is very helpful to have me one-on-one so that I can work specifically with you and you have my full attention. I've got a message on YouTube. Hi, my 6-year-old has a small safe food list. He's willing to taste new food. Ag struggles to taste textures. Is there more to that question? That's the whole question. So I always say this, I always need more information. My question back to this person would be, so your child is 6 and they've got this strong gag reflex. Has that always been an issue? Is that something that's only with new foods? Does that happen with foods that they currently enjoy? And usually I've done a few videos on this, and I'm pretty sure I've talked about it in a couple of other lives as well, which you can see. Most of my lives are saved either on YouTube or on Instagram. If you've got a child that is gagging solely on new foods or foods that they don't feel comfortable with, it's often because in the past they have been coerced or manipulated in some way to try a food that they don't want to try. And think about it. If I shoved a food in your face and you were afraid that I was going to make you eat it, you might gag on it as well. Oh, follow up. Only new food started about 2 years ago. Oh, it started at about 2 years old. So it's unlikely that it's anything structural. I would say it's more than likely behavioral response. So my question back to you, if we were on a call, and I would highly encourage you to reach out to me so that we can chat on the phone. I would want to know a lot more about what else was going on when that behavior started as to what is continuing that behavior. So I've worked with parents that have had issues with gagging or, issues with throwing up certain foods because, and it's not as, so long as it's not a structural or medical issue, it's almost always behavioral. And when it's behavioral, it means that we can work on it and make changes, because it's usually a combination of the parent's behavior and responses to the child's behavior, which is a great thing because we can work on it and improve it. Okay, got a question on Instagram. 17-month-old from Emily. 17-month-old won't touch pasta or rice no matter how it is prepared. Any tips for these type of foods? Yeah, so 17 months old, great. I love seeing parents that have young babies, toddlers almost, that are working on this issue from the beginning. First of all, do your best not to serve plain rice and pasta, especially pasta, because it's really hard to go back to putting it in with a sauce if you all of a sudden, if you've got a child who is used to having it plain, they're not going to want to accept it with sauce. Don't fall into that trap. I'm working with one of my clients in my group at the moment who's working on refried beans and rice because that's a big staple in their family's diet. And the answer is that continuing to expose them is one thing. I would ask you more about what you've tried, so I don't give you the same things to try. But it's a good question, and I know a lot of people do struggle with that. So when we work together, both in the group or one-on-one, I ask you to write a wish list of foods for your child. And so this parent's wish list was rice and beans and a few other things, veggies and stuff. We work towards those things in the group. We work towards those things in one-on-one. At the moment, with one of my clients, we're working on eggs. And we've got to slowly take steps to get there, and it takes time. And I know that's not what anyone wants to hear, but anybody who has a child knows that things don't happen overnight. You didn't get to this place overnight, and you're not gonna fix it in one night. It's not possible. My 3.5-year-old daughter on the spectrum, not severe, refuses to eat lunch at school and only eats 3 foods. So my question back to you, I would have a lot more questions about what you're sending to school. So a lot of my clients that I work with, they'll have similar issues. Their child, sometimes it's the opposite, where they will eat at school but not at home. So there are tweaks that we can put into practice at home. In this situation, we might need to get the child's daycare on board with a few things. This is again something that I can help you with if we were to work together. So please feel free to reach out about you may be a good fit for the small group since your daughter's on the spectrum but not severe. So send me a message. Rachel says she did food therapy for over a year, but he would never repeat trying foods at home. You know what? I've actually heard that quite a lot. And let me tell you, one of my clients summed it up perfectly. They were in food therapy, and she said the food therapist was great. She would like put on a show, and she would be able to get my child, she would be able to entice him to eat or try something, but I can't keep that up at home. So that's a huge thing. There are some food therapists that I've heard from clients where they are forcing their child to eat things, which is absolutely, if you've got a food therapist that is forcing your child or coercing them to try, lick, taste, touch, or anything, get a different one. But the problem with food therapy that I have seen is that it's great that it works with the child, but oftentimes that can pose an issue for both the parent and for the child, because some children don't take well to new people. So one of the clients that I'm going to be working with coming up, she's on my wait list. She was telling me the same thing. Like, her child does not do well with new people. So the food therapy won't work for her for that situation. And then in reverse, the food therapist isn't teaching the parent what to do at home. When we work together, I'm working directly with you as the parent. I am here coaching you and giving you the tools. We are practicing these together so that you can then go and be the one that's implementing it at home in a way that you're able to do it consistently. I often tell clients this at the very beginning. I'm going to give you a suggestion. If you do not think this is possible for you to do, you need to tell me, because I'm not here to turn your life upside down. I am here to make your life easier. And if I give you a suggestion that I think is going to work, but you're inside your head thinking there's no way in hell I'm going to do that or going to be able to do that, I need to know that so that we can find a way to put it into your life without your life fitting into that. And that's really important. Okay. Girl mom, can I help? Yes, I can, but I don't know if I missed your initial question. It'd be great if you could send me a message and describe a little bit more about what's going on. Emma, my son has massive meltdowns when we try to get him to try new foods. Can you help if parent is picky also? Yes, I can. I'm working with a client at the moment. She actually recognizes a lot of her child's behaviors in herself, because she also could eat the same foods over and over and over again without wanting to branch out, really. So yes, we absolutely can. This is where a lot of mindset work comes in, and that's mindset work and conversations and communication are really fundamental to the work that I do with you as the parent. If your mindset is in a shitty place, I can give you, doesn't matter what phrase I tell you to say, doesn't matter how I tell you to talk to your child, you're not going to be in the place to really be authentic with your child. And your child can see through it because they have a great bullshit meter. And so we need to work on your mindset first and foremost. And that's something ongoing. Some parents get it really easily and they're able to work through it, quickly, and they're able to come back and say, like, 6 weeks in, hey, I know that this happened, but I also know this, and this, and their mindset's in a great place. But then there are other parents which is totally fine and normal, that are just exhausted by it. And 6 weeks in, they're still needing reminders and help working on their mindset. And that's exactly what I help you with. So yes, I can. Please feel free to send me a message. My dietitian suggested cutting shapes. This did not help. Do you have any tips? Yes, I absolutely do. Cutting shapes is one way of doing it, but oftentimes it has less to do with the food and more to do with the interactions with the food. Again, this comes back to how to communicate effectively with your child and how to work with them as a team. So there's a big difference between, one of the clients that I'm working with right now who has autism, we were working on changing up the way his food was cut. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be a triangle. It can be a rectangle. It can be a square. It doesn't have to be anything exciting. However, we were working on him being able to accept it cut in a different way. And there's listen to the way I'm going to communicate this to you. Today, we're cutting your toast in half. Your child is going to have a huge meltdown, versus having a discussion with them about, hey, we're going to try something different and interesting today. What we're going to do, we're going to come up with a new shape to cut your food into, and then we walk through how to manage this meltdown that may or may not come. However, this all comes back to communication. The way you talk, your tone, your body language, your mindset, being confident in knowing how you're communicating and what's going to come next. Often we will troubleshoot a specific example so that when you walk away, like I had a parent in my group yesterday who was like, I'm actually really excited to try this. And it was something that was kind of a scary new thing. Like we were working on trying eggs. We were also working on trying soup, which are things that her daughter will have nothing to do with. But she left being really excited because she knew how she was going to manage it if and when a meltdown happened. All right. So if you've got questions and you want to work with me, or you want to know more about how I can help you, send me a DM. I've got a lot of information on my YouTube channel. And if you're not sure that you need coaching, definitely check out the online course, Mealtimes Without Meltdowns. Like I said, it's $149 US, which is $3 a lesson. All right, I'm going to answer this question that I just got on Instagram as well. Oh, I need to go in and read it out. For insurance, I take NDIS, which is in Australia. But otherwise, you would have to check with your insurance company. How much are consults? So when we work together, it's for a period of time, usually 5 months, unless we do the group, which is 8 weeks. However, the reason that we work together for a longer period of time, there's no way, I was actually telling someone this morning, there's no way we can make meaningful changes in 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions. It takes a lot of follow-up and support on your end, because when you fix one thing, another question will come up. And when you know that you have me there, because when we work together, it's a very high touch program that I offer. We have our calls, which is one thing, but another thing that you get when you work with me is that we work, in the client portal, there is a private chat, which means that you can send me messages anytime. I only get them when I log in to check messages. So I tell clients, like, you're not bothering me. You can send me messages in the middle of the night if you need to. I'm in Australia. Most of my clients are in North America. So if you send me a message like in the middle of the night, it doesn't matter. I get it when I check my messages and I will respond. So you get support between the calls, which means if something comes up or I've given you a homework task to do and it goes to shit and you don't know what to do, you send me a message. You know, in the back of your mind, I've got Talia there. If I need help, she's got my back. I've got your back between calls. It's not like goodbye and see you in 2 weeks. Good luck. Come back with a million questions in a week or 2 weeks. That's not going to help you. You need I know what it's like to feed children 5 times a day. You need support between that time. It's just not possible to reach the goals that you have if you don't have the constant, reasonable connection with me. Is coaching $8.99 for 5 months or $8.99 per month? Yes, per month. And like I said, with that cost, so we have our calls, and then you also have me available to answer your questions between calls. And something that I do in the small coaching group that I've been getting a lot of really great feedback. I've been doing this for the last maybe 4 or 5 programs that I've done, is that if I have a person that can't make it to a call, or they ask a question and it would take me 20 minutes to type up a response, I instead send you a voice message, like a voice note that you can go back and listen to. I encourage the other parents in the group to listen to it as well, because oftentimes you will have questions that kind of overlap. And a lot of the strategies that I give you of like how to introduce eggs, for example, is something that you can apply to a different food like apples or something else. So you'll get ideas from what the other parents share. And that's where the group is so great, because we're kind of covering a lot of different personalities in children, and things that you're more than likely going to encounter with your own child as well. So if group coaching is something that you're interested in, it's definitely the best way to work with me in terms of cost effectiveness, and getting my support that way. Like I said, it's a very high touch program. We work together on calls, and then you also have me available to answer questions and send you voice notes. I apologize, because I was speaking a voice note to one of my clients, and I suggest that parents send pictures of their plates to me as well, so that I can look, because oftentimes the way you're plating food can be tweaked to be much more effective, which the parents find really helpful. So as I'm going through and creating this voice note, I'm looking at the pictures, and I'm reading their comments, and I'm giving feedback. And I went back to the original voice note to finish it, and it was 10 minutes. And when we got on the call, I'm like, I'm so sorry that was such a long message. And she was like, no, it was full of like tons of information. I'm sitting there taking notes of, what I can do for the next week. And I'm really excited. So, like I said, it's highly supportive. All right. The last question I'm going to answer is my son, Katie, if you're still on the live. My son is 2, and he has stopped eating foods he used to previously love. Is this normal? And how do I get him, how do I get him back to eating them? Okay. So when I say yes, it's normal, I mean, yes, most children will go through a phase of saying no to things, because that's very normal. They are going to say no to things because children like autonomy. However, the way you respond to this has a huge impact on whether it becomes an ongoing cycle of pickiness that takes you down the rabbit hole of eventually having to work with me or somebody like me who can help you reverse it, versus it's just a phase, like, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal, it'll just like correct itself on its own. The thing is, it's not just the child's behaviors that need tweaking, it's your behaviors as well. And I say that from a place of love. I am not calling anyone out for being a bad parent. If you're on the live at the beginning, you'll know I said, the reason parents over accommodate is because they love their child. It's not because they're trying to do the wrong thing. You're trying to do the best thing. The thing is, sometimes the best thing, the conventional best thing, is actually going to make the problem worse. And that's what I'm going to help you fix, so that you can be really confident at mealtimes, start enjoying your mealtimes, and not be dreading them. So if you have questions, if you're interested in the group, coaching, anything, send me a message. Instagram, I check Instagram the most regularly, and TikTok. You can also message on Facebook if you want to, but Instagram, TikTok would be great. If you're interested in the new coaching group, let me know in a DM. Hey, I saw you live. Let me know. Can you give me the registration link? It's not on my website yet, the link. So if you want to get registered, the group is capped at less than 10 people, and they tend to fill up pretty quickly. So if that's something that you want to save your spot for, you get started on the online courses now, so that when we start our group in January, you'll be all ready. You'll come with questions, and you'll have already made a bunch of changes, which will be getting you to the place where you want to be. So if you have questions, DM me, message me, and I will chat with you soon. I hope you have a great weekend, and thanks for being here. Bye.